All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this afternoon's NJ Fast meeting. Lie down. Can one of the organizers confirm you can hear me okay?
I can, Robert here.
Good, thank you. All right. So as I say, welcome to tonight's meeting. For those who are familiar with NJ Fast, we are a forum for discussion, continuing education, exchange of ideas in pharmaceutical sciences based in northern New Jersey. We usually meet monthly in normal times, face-to-face. These are not normal times, obviously, so we have a series of webinars ongoing now. So welcome to the first. We're a non-profit, we're not affiliated with AAPS or any other organization, and you can find information about us online at njfast.org. This shows the leadership of the organization. I'm president of the organization, David Harris. I have an able team of professionals from a variety of other companies who assist in running the organization. So tonight's meeting sponsors, we're kindly sponsored by Natoli, Gatfasay, Bioduro. I'll hand off to them in just a moment and they can say a few words about what services they offer to the industry. I need to say that we are very grateful to the sponsors because we cannot run these meetings without their financial support. So thank you. With that, I will hand off first to Dr. Firuz Azgadeh of Bioduro. So any second. Firuz, you're up.
Hold on, okay. Can I show screen? Is that good?
That's good.
Thank you, David. I want to thank NJ Fast, the organization. It's an honor to be in here and specifically following these presentations to listen to Dr. Hussain's presentation in these conventional times. Talking about Bioduro, as seen on this slide, is a CRDMO, Contract Research Development Manufacturing Organization. We specialize specifically in challenging formulation and where science is going to be used in order to address solubility and permeability issues with drug product development. Our legacy is over 20 years of experience in the CMC that comes from when the original company Pharmaform was founded by Professor McGinnity out of UT Austin back in 1996. Over 20 years of experience in that field. We basically provide world-class accelerated and science-founded formulation development to our customers. Over 1,100 employees are there that are helping with this for our organization. Solution Engine 2.0 is the platform that we use in order to get to phase 1 clinical formulation as fast as possible. We are talking about 6 weeks of development to maximize bioavailability or optimize release profile through controlled release. There is no, this is not a QBD, but it is not QBA, quality by accident. Rather than accidentally mixing and matching things, we certainly look into optimizing the initial selection by selecting the right ingredients through in silico calculations and the fact that like dissolves like. We focus on amorphous solid dispersion, SIDS and SMEDs, modified release, micronization, nano suspensions, and other type of technology in order to enhance bioavailability. And we also have our own animal studies at Bioduro. So it allows us very quickly within a space of 6 weeks to have 2 rounds of animal studies in addition to the initial in silico modeling and miniaturized screening. So when not that much drugs available, when the cost is high, tight timelines, that is when we are looking to these kind of accelerated development where 6 to 8 weeks work allows us to be over a year ahead of game when it comes to development of formulations. As you have seen on many slides, I'm sure 70% or more of drugs are poorly bioavailable. Solubility is less than 0.1 microgram per milliliter. Hundreds of thousands of liters are needed to dissolve that drug. Maybe your pool, your neighbor's pool, and so on is needed in order to do a solubility in any level. Stomach is not the right place for majority of drugs, so certainly working on a formulation for controlled release is important at early stages of development. There are lots of misconception there when it comes to TG and the polymer. If there is strong interaction between the polymer and the drug for amorphous solid dispersion, if we did the in silico job right, then we don't need high TG for our system. The amorphous system is going to be stabilized. There is no need to reach the melt point of drug to dissolve it in the polymer in an amorphous system. Nobody melts salt to dissolve in water, and nobody melts sugar to do that either. That is happening because of the fact that there are strong ionic or strong hydrogen bonds are happening between solvent and solute. Miniaturized system is basically matrix system, evaporation of the matrix solvent, making the solution at the bottom, looking at the dissolution profiles, and taking the best formulation and putting it into animals. In order to do controlled release when you don't have a lot of drug, mini tablet is the best option. We do coat mini tablets and deliver to different animals in order to look at the release profiles. Once we find the right dissolution profile and the right technology, they are put in animals. And then here on this slide, as you can see, even the spray dried material has the same area under curve, AUC, as the tube content. So this shows us that actually the system is validated. Basically, first week is formulation, up to 2 weeks of work, one round of animal study, another 2 weeks of work, another round of animal study, and that's the 6 weeks that I mentioned earlier. So again, by all means, thank you for the time that was allocated for us. Thank you, NJ Fast, for this. And we are happy to entertain any questions whenever you need to reach us.
Right. Thanks, Feroz. With that, I'll hand over to Deandra Wolf of GATFSA. Oops, what have I done?
Okay, sorry, let me just. Okay, thank you, NJ Fast, for having us here. So, hello everyone. You know, GATFSA, we are happy to be here today to have the opportunity to take a few moments to talk about who GATFSA is and highlight who we are as a company and what we can do to help you. Sorry. So with GATFSA, as many of you know, we are a premier excipient supplier who has a diverse portfolio with diverse functionalities and also technologies that can be suitable for a wide array of dosage forms. Our commitment to the pharmaceutical company is evident by our commitment to the pharmaceutical company is evident by our generations that are within health and wellness. So since the 1800s, GATFSA has been led through the GATFSA family. In fact, this year is our 180th anniversary. So we're happy here to share that with you. And this is only evidence of how we love to be a part of the scientific space and the pharmaceutical space. So in addition to in addition to having a commitment to innovation and being a part of the scientific community. We also take pride in supplying quality pharmaceutical excipients and as well as technical support that helps to shorten drug pipelines. This is also something you take pride in, as well as also our quality of supply. We have a number of manufacturing sites that are in Asia, Europe, and the Americas soon. And these are all our excipients are produced under GMP certified and SIO certified standards, as well as we're able to manufacture all of our excipients under quality by design standards and capabilities as you need. Last but not least, we take corporate social responsibility quite seriously, and we are doing ongoing initiatives to meet the challenges that come with environmental drawbacks from production. So we're working actively to do things that help environmental sustainability. Okay. Yes. So as you know, we are an excipient supplier, but we do have formulation solutions also. As you can see from the wheel, there's a lot of different delivery technologies and functional excipients that we have to offer you. Just to highlight a few of them, these excipients and delivery technologies, they include taste masking excipients to help taste mask your granules, as well as topical enhancers such as permeation and penetration enhancers for your topical dosage forms. We also have modified release agents that can be used to target your release profiles as you need. These are just a few, but it's worth to note and mention that oh, wowee. So it's worth mentioning that in addition to all, it's worth mentioning that last but not least, we also offer a wide range of solubilizers for several applications, including oral, topical, and parenteral dosage forms. We have technical centers of excellence located globally, including right here not online, but right here in Paramus, New Jersey. So we'd like to thank Dr. Hussain for speaking tonight, and we look forward to the presentation and the very exciting content. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you, Deandra. And last but not least, I'll hand off to Robert Sedlock from Natoli, our third sponsor.
Okay, can you see my screen okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. Greetings, everyone. I'm Robert Sedlock. I'm here with Natoli Scientific in Telford, Pennsylvania. We're a division of Natoli Engineering. Natoli Engineering is located in St. Charles, Missouri, founded by Carmelo Natoli in 1973, now being run by Dale Natoli, who is our CEO and our president. Natoli Engineering provides compression tools globally for all industries: pharmaceutical, nutraceutical, food, the cannabis industry, automotive, and so on. So we have many facilities at headquarters in St. Charles in St. Louis area. We have facility for manufacturing our compression tools, facility for our tablet presses and our turrets. We offer everything from single station machines up to benchtop rotary, to scale up machines, pilot scale, and manufacturing. We also offer the AIM data acquisition system, which is a force measurement software program. We also have facilities here for maintaining our steel, and then we also have a training center. We have other off-site facilities called resource centers and training centers globally. We have one in Long Island, New York. We have Poland, California, and I'm at the scientific center called Natoli Scientific in Telford, Pennsylvania. It's a 12,000 square foot facility where we provide lab and training services for our customers that are having any type of tableting issues, everything from blending to granulation, tableting, scale up into manufacturing. So at Natoli Scientific, where we focus on tableting problems, capping issues, lamination issues, hardness issues, scalability, content uniformity, weight issues. So we offer everything from micromoretics, so we can evaluate the particles, the flow, the particle engineering, moisture content, blending capabilities from 2 quart to 20 cubic feet, granulation, dry, slugging, roller compaction, wet granulation, high shear and fluid bed, tableting. We focus a lot on compaction emulation. We're actually using an emulator to emulate the manufacturing process, so we can actually make tablets of very limited quantity, few milligrams, and emulate the manufacturing rates up to 1 meter per second and those very low dwell times, and we can evaluate material deformation properties, evaluating the elastic recovery, the brittleness, the plastic nature of the material. That helps the formulation process and deciding on what type of excipients we need to make a robust formulation that scales into manufacturing. We also have single station presses here, rotary presses, R&D, so we can evaluate sticking and picking problems. We've got a wide range of steel types and coatings that we provide our customers. Depending on your API or your material that's sticking, we have particular steel types and coatings that could combat those issues. We also have small scale manufacturing presses. We offer film coating solutions as well, and analytical, dissolution, stability, content uniformity, and so on. Our contribution to the industry, we work with many universities worldwide. Long Island University in Brooklyn, New York, Arnold and Marie Schwartz School of Pharmacy, run by Dr. Rutesh Dave. We provide training services here and contract work, and it gives the opportunity for the graduate students to work on real industry projects and also do training in a professional manner. We work with Karachi University. We work with NUS in Singapore, Indonesia, University of Maryland, and Mississippi, where we do training activities there on tablets and capsules, development process, all the way from the beginning of blending all the way to film coating. We also work with Drexel University. We have a current project right now with them. So I just want to thank everybody at NJ Fast, David Harris. I also want to thank Dr. Hussain for speaking today. We look forward to your presentation. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Robert. And thanks once again to all of our sponsors. As I say, we can't do these meetings without their help. We have an ongoing series of meetings planned. Our next meeting is October 15th. Dr. Cassandra Taylor from FDA with a fascinating topic on FDA's role in regulating cannabis products. So hope you can join us for that. Information about our program is online, as I said before. For today's meeting, webinar, it's a webinar format, obviously. All attendees are muted. If you have questions, please use the chat function, which looks like a little box in the top right of the screen. And we will relay questions to the speaker during the Q&A session. So with that, I'd like to introduce tonight's speaker. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Ajaz Hussain. He has a B.Pharm from University of Mumbai, a Ph.D. from University of Cincinnati. 30 years of really unique experience in the industry, spanning academia, US FDA, and industry, between Sandoz, Philip Morris, Wockhardt. Currently president of the not-for-profit organization, NIPT. Also has an advisory practice focused on developing corporations and individual professionals as self-authored architects of evidence they need to make sound decisions efficiently. And there is an awesome set of words if ever I've seen one. And also adjunct professor to LIU. So I've known Ajaz through his work for many years, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce him tonight as our speaker of our opening webinar series. So with that, let me hand you presentation rights. And Dr. Hussain, you're good to go.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to reconnect with NJ Fast. And thank you, David, for the kind invitation. I think Samiran is not around. I think is he one of the? He's the one who approached me. So I really would like to reflect on. Hold on. Can you see my screen now? Before I.
Yes.
All right. So let's put this on. So managing pharmaceutical quality in and beyond COVID-19 pandemic, I think.
I think you've gone back. We've gone back to sharing webcams again.
All right. Can you see that now?
Yes. I should stop speaking, shouldn't I?
So let me know if you don't see it anymore. Just to give you a sense, it sort of flips between my webcam and the slides. I hope you're seeing my slides now. Correct, David? So I would like to share my insight, advice, and solution. That's the name of the company I formed in 2013. And I've organized my talk around insights is experiential learning. Hold on. Let me, okay. My experiential learning from 2014 to 2020, that was a special period, and I'll explain why. And I want to put this discussion in the context of 21st century pharmaceutical quality and adult human development, not only in terms of the information asymmetry that persists between professionals and the patients about quality as well as safety and efficacy, but among ourselves as adult human development as it relates to professional development of us in the sector. And I want to focus on maturity of our systems, of our professionals before, in, and beyond COVID-19. I think I want to key advice, key takeaway is to think about personal professional model for pharmaceutical quality system. That is, how do we personalize ICHQ-10 model, which is part of the ICHQ-10 guideline, which was finalized in 2009. And I'll share with you two case examples. One with the help of slides, which is a large company on their journey to maturing their quality management system. And as I discuss that, I'll also share with you a case example which is ongoing, is a small company based in Goa, India, that I have been advisor since 2015, and how they are maturing their quality system as they mature themselves. So as part of the insight, I think, ironically, I think I had a plaque on my wall in my basement from NJ Fast, and which dates back to February of 2000. I'm wondering what the topic was when I spoke at NJ Fast in the year 2000. My guess is it was biopharm classification system, and perhaps the beginning of the Ph.D. or process analytical technology initiative. But insight, I think, is an important consideration of our learning and development. And I was very privileged to have very diverse and multiple viewpoints to think about pharmaceutical quality. So multiple viewpoints in a life spiral creating memories which are not necessarily reliable unless noted contemporaneously. So I began a journey to, just to give you background, after I left FDA, I led the Sandoz biosimilar complex generic development program, and then I moved on to tobacco sector as the vice president for the next generation products at Philip Morris International, based in Switzerland. And there, the two projects that I focused my attention on, one was making vaccines in tobacco plant, especially pandemic vaccines in tobacco plant. And the second and the major project was to tobacco harm reduction and to progress the evidence architecture needed before FDA guidelines, before FDA regulations on modified risk tobacco product. And just a month ago, FDA approved IQOS, is the first approved modified risk tobacco product that's on the US market right now. And then I was not planning to come back to the sector. I was planning to retire then. And then I got attracted to helping my home country, India, in their efforts to address complex generics biosimilars. And I sort of got associated with India, reconnected with India. And so that begins my journey. And I have been writing quite a bit, so I will share with you links to my writing, such as Strategies for Making High Pharmaceutical Quality Affordable in 2013 was in India. And you will have my slides, so you'll be able to access those links directly. So immediately, I think, returning back to pharma, I was confronted with a nightmare which I had experienced as I moved from academia to FDA. That was the generic drug scandal of which led to the formation of Office of Pharmaceutical Quality and the SUPAC and the BCS guideline, and then to 21st Century Initiative. And that was a significantly large cluster of breaches in assurance of data integrity and challenges in quality assurance. And I recall the Department of Justice note that reminding the sector, do we have right people? Are they able to see the problems, report the problems, and fix the problems? Are they satisfied and engaged? People, policies working in harmony? Do we personally have visibility into what our people are actually doing? And that began a journey because the challenge that I was confronting at the company I was working, which I had to step away from that company to start my own company to be able to help the challenge across multiple companies in India. And I started a journey I called Schrodinger's Cat and my journey from 2015 to 2020. So all of these were contemporaneous notes that I recorded and posted on my LinkedIn. They're still on my LinkedIn. So if you are not linked in with me, please do link in with me, and then you can be able to see these posts from 2014 onward. And in December 2014, I noted that today, in a diffuse global arena, many of us, and especially those disciplined in science, technology, or engineering, are ill-prepared or harbor a lot of hesitation to address aspects of irrational human behavior early in our day-to-day activities. This, I believe, is a significant challenge. It is at the root of the problems we see today in media headlines, from stem cell challenges to clinical trials to manufacturing. Now, my journey into the tobacco sector forced me to really focus on psychology of human behavior, particularly with respect to tobacco harm reduction, habits, and addiction. And so that was a new skill set that I had acquired over my time in the tobacco sector. So I'm bringing that aspect, that viewpoint into our discussion. Many of you might remember Vision 2020. I can see clearly now. This was at the beginning of the PAT initiative while at FDA. So the first subcommittee, PAT subcommittee, was held in November 2001, 28th of November 2001. The first FDA Science Board on PAT was on 16th of November. So the whole idea was to help improve quality and performance by design, continuous real-time monitoring of quality, specifications based on mechanistic understanding of how formulation and process factors impact product performance, high efficiency and capacity utilization, real-time review and inspection from Rockville or wherever FDA was. And I think today in COVID, we essentially have gone towards virtual inspections and perhaps real-time inspections and real-time reviews are not far away. So to think about this, how does one mature how does one understand, or how does one become a good practitioner in a manufacturing laboratory or a clinical setting, GLP, GMP, or broadly GXP? So the idea then I had was, I think India is such a large hub for pharmaceutical manufacturing, and India is the youngest country in the world. The median age is 29 or less now. And the key challenge is the systems, the corporate, the governmental systems, the regulatory systems are not mature to the same extent as they are in the US or developed nations. So we focus on economic growth and we do not focus attention on human development. And we assume human development will happen automatically with economic growth. That's not necessarily a valid assumption. So I wanted to focus on empowering individuals to empower their own development. So that's the theme of my talk: personal to professional maturity, that's development, internal to external validation, and the guidelines that we have developed from ICH Q10, Q9, Q8, FDA process validation guideline. Really, these are the principles underpinning these guidelines are useful also for our professional development, and that was the idea that I wanted to pursue. So the entire GMPs are hinged on or founded on, I think, 21 CFR 211.25, which is somewhat outdated the way it's written in 1976 when the regulation was written, but it does point to education, training, or experience is necessary to work in a GMP setting. And the or is a historical context, but today I think we have to really pay attention to, have we defined what are the criteria for adequate education, training, and experience for the level of complexities that we assign and responsibility we assign to different jobs and at different levels within the organization. And when you look at that, it is highly variable how we do that. And that, I think, is a weak link in the system which needs attention. And what is good practice? I think good is moral, good is ethical, but it's not practical to think in those terms anymore. In a systems perspective, good refers to something in a system, and I want to focus on that. But I also wanted to think about a tool of a development tool as we go from our impulse control to teenagers. Our focus is on looking good. And as we get socialized in the sector, we want to be good. And as we develop further, we want to do good. And as we become leaders, we want to see good so that's to help the system mature more quickly. And what does that mean, I think, is the key. So what are the development stages in terms of GMP? Are we aware? First stage is unaware of need to change or to improve, aware of the need to change, but have an attitude of, well, everybody is doing. In India, they call chalta hai. So I don't care. Aware of need to change, but don't know how, and don't want to ask because I will look bad. Awareness of change, know how, but don't want to make your boss look bad. And finally, you are aware, you know how, and you actually take action. So in that sense, I think a systems approach to problem solving, a systems approach to root cause investigations, corrective action, preventive action, I think becomes a foundational piece of our development and maturity, as well as development and maturity of a quality management system. So when we think about a systems approach, when at the end of the root cause investigation, we say root cause unknown and we blame the analyst or the operator at the front line, that is being imperialist. That is a low order of development, a professional development, as well as maturity of the system. So we have to take a systems approach, and this Swiss cheese model is one way of thinking about a systems approach to effective investigations, effective corrective action, and preventive action. When James Reason proposed this model, he had noted that we cannot change the human condition, but we can change the conditions under which humans work. Clearly, I think as we globalized our pharmaceutical supply chain, we did not pay attention to whether the factory or the facility is in a developed economy or a developing economy or an emerging economy. And we assumed that human development across the globe would be very similar. I wanted to sort of re-examine that because I was not sure that that assumption holds true. So I wanted to focus on challenging the notion we cannot change the human condition and take a Gandhian approach to say we need to be the change to be able to improve our system. So our systems are ecological systems. We live and work within the systems. And the only way to change the system or improve the system is to change ourselves and to improve ourselves, was the mindset there. So some of you, or many of you might remember, I was the FDA lead to get the ICH guidelines Q8, Q9, Q10 progress as part of the 21st Century Initiative. And I left at after ICH Q8 became step 2, I left FDA to go to Sandoz then. And one of the memories from that meeting was an acknowledgement by the ICH Q8 working group of my push for design space and reminding everyone of the human nature of procrastination, and reminding everyone that we need to know how we know things and epistemology. So I picked up my thinking from that aspect. I think when I look at the progress we have achieved, theory of knowledge, knowledge of variation, I think when I collectively look at ICH Q8, Q9, and in the context of FDA's new process validation guideline, especially and the PAT guideline, I think we have made significant progress in theory of knowledge and knowledge of variation. And when I look at Deming's way of thinking about that, he said a total quality management system really comes to fruition when you have theory of knowledge, you have knowledge of variation, and you're able to appreciate systems, and you have pay attention to psychology of change. So my talk today, I'm focused on appreciation of a system and psychology of change. I'm not going to go in depth of ICH Q8, PAT, or process validation guideline, but focus on human development aspects in the context of system and psychology of change. So in that sense, matters of the mind matters. Assurance of quality is clearly subjective to us. Assurance is a subjective aspect. Quality is subjective. I know it when I see it. And the key enablers for quality management system in ICH Q10 are knowledge management and risk management. the whole idea of quality by design was to, or design space was to have a basis for objective, quantifiable risk assessment, not just based on opinions, which we still struggle with. And in that context, therapeutic equivalence and assurance of quality are really ontological objective, or should be ontological objective. They are real aspects of, so assurance of quality is a critical quality attribute for safety and efficacy, and it influences what patients experience in the real world. Remember, placebo and nocebo effects are expectancy effects, and when we do clinical trials for new drugs, we take extra precaution to be able to account for the placebo effects. We do randomized placebo-controlled clinical trials. We don't remove the placebo effect, we account for it. In the real world, placebo effects remain, and if we don't pay attention to that, I think the therapeutic equivalence system that we have actually crumbles down. So that's where I'm coming from. So in that sense, I think culture of quality becomes an important element, which if you would remember, in 2004, September 2004, FDA issued a final report on the 21st century CGMP initiative. And within that, a draft guideline was issued on quality system interpretation of CGMPs. And that's when we first time introduced the notion of the importance of culture of quality, but we did not define it. And I think that is the gap I was trying to fill. Culture of quality is influenced by leadership emphasis, message credibility, peer involvement, and I can't even see what's there. Sorry about that. Employee empowerment, sorry about that. I forgot to mention that. So in that sense, what we have to think about is how do we interact and interrelate with the system, and what are the skill sets and what are the development needs that we have to think about. And how does one make quality normal, easy, and rewarding? So in context of individuals at the operator level, at the laboratory level, and so forth, awareness of the need to improve, mastery of their job function, and more importantly, removing fear to be able to raise your hand to say there is an error, we need to make the correction. I think that's the key. Over the years, I have written a number, since my attention was focused mostly in Asia for last several years. Most of my publications have been in for the audience in Asia. And if you are interested, I'll be glad to, if you send me an email, I'll be glad to send you PDF versions of these papers. So much of this has been written for several years ago. So where do I want to go next? Really is in and beyond the COVID emergency. I believe individual and institutional attention, cognition, and actions to empower good practices via continual development of adults is the need of the hour. And I'll define what continual professional development is, and what I mean by that. And so I'll go back to the FDA Science Board meeting and the Pfizer's statement, or Pfizer's policy that they articulated or they shared at the FDA Science Board: don't use and don't tell. And another company, Amgen, if I don't look, there is no problem. And going from that thinking to problem solving to prevention of problem in the context of adult human development. And I'll be using the constructive development theory of Professor Kagan at Harvard on adult human development to characterize these stages as development, professional stages of development, and how to overcome what Professor Keegan calls immunity to change. Why don't people change? Why do people keep smoking when they know the risk, and so forth? So the feeling system, change prevention system, and knowing system, I'll elaborate on that with a case example. So to put this in the context, to see the big picture, before the COVID, as the number of warning letters, import alerts were increasing, one started to see for the first time, I believe, so clearly that our system for pharmaceutical equivalence, bioequivalence, and therapeutic equivalence is dependent on the assurance of quality or trust in the FDA itself. So as the generic sector was struggling with the warning letter, especially for breaches in assurance of data integrity, there were 6 studies published where the adherence rate to prescriptions to generic upon automatic substitution started decreasing, significantly decreasing, when the color and shape of the tablet changed. And you may recall in 2015, FDA issued a guidance on shape and size of a tablet. They could not touch the color because color is a trademark. If they insist on the same color, that's the end of generic sector now. So in that sense, we were struggling with the supply of generic drugs, assurance of quality, assurance of therapeutic equivalence in the context of bad eye or warning letters, breaches is assurance of data integrity. And I think Bloomberg in 2017 characterized that situation very well. With US generic drug market in chaos, Indian upstarts rise. So the case example 2 that I'm going to talk to you about is an Indian upstart. But I want you to think about chaos as a system, which I'll explain in a minute. Clearly, FDA moved to increase generic competition. They kept approving new applications, they set new records. And when you take a deeper look at that, of all the approved products, 50% of the approved generic products are either never marketed in the US or marketed sporadically or marketed very, very late. So just approving generic applications is no solution to the challenge. And clearly, FDA is now championing continuous manufacturing, and now it has linked it to drug quality. And clearly, the future, one scenario for the future is post-human future, where we don't want to have manufacturing. We don't want to have any humans in manufacturing. We want complete automation, complete continuous manufacturing. That's one reality out there. And with how practical, how realistic, and whether it's feasible or not is a question. But regardless of that, I think we have to think about professional development, because when you have suffocating silence preventing us from questioning the rot in the system, that's Dinesh Thakur from Ranbaxy, and when hospitals have given up on the pharmaceutical manufacturing sector to start their own, we have a serious challenge. And this was before COVID emergency. The challenge is now significantly more as we go forward. So to put it in the most recent context, yesterday, day before yesterday, at the PDA workshop, we had FDA really pushing for quality system maturity, so as to be able to incentivize companies that have mature quality system and perhaps reduce the regulatory burden on those companies. So that's the whole idea that we have been thinking about for quite some time. And Doug Throckmorton, who is the Deputy Center Director, laid out this quote from him. It's a culture first. It is about people anticipating challenges rather than reacting to them. Place a model that measures quality in a way that allows you to anticipate problems rather than identify them after the fact. So in that sense, My journey from 2015 to 2020 really is now can be put in context. Our knowledge pyramid can topple very easily because breaches in assurance of data integrity are widespread. We are stuck into 2 to 3 sigma barrier because of the compendial testing as release tests that we do. And how do you break that model? We have defaults of 10x and so forth, there was no science foundation for many of our defaults, which SUPAC normalized, unfortunately, and that's the reason the whole idea of quality by design space was to make your own SUPAC and not be trapped with the defaults of 10x and 3 batches and this and that. And clearly, I think we have not appreciated 21 CFR 211.25 education, training, and experience because we have never actually defined what is acceptable education, training, and experience. Which is hard to believe, but that's true. So to think about my advice, I think is again, I have written a number of papers how to break the pharmaceutical 2 to 3 sigma barrier, which is available, and then on new prior knowledge with Professor Ken Morris of LIU and Vadim Garvich at Minnesota. And most importantly, chaos to continual improvement, a path forward. I just want to explain these aspects to you now. So in that context, the knowledge that we need to mature a quality system, the knowledge that we need to design and control manufacturing process, for example, statistical process control. Statistical process control is a 70-year-old concept. There's nothing new in it. So having the knowledge, or perhaps we better distinguish between information and knowledge management. Information is not knowledge, and I think much of our education and training is sharing information and not ensuring that gets converted to knowledge. And much of our training for SOPs and so forth is casual. You just read, and how we write SOPs is a big problem too. So in that sense, to personalize the professional development using available guidelines that we use to control our manufacturing processes, we can simply use the same thing to improve ourselves. So in that context, personal to professional ICHQ 10 model, really the elements of professional development can be analogous to process performance, supervisory monitoring system, corrective action, preventive action, change management, management review, which can be linked directly to the HR annual performance review and so forth. So I think these elements can be really translated, and that's what I've been doing at a number of companies. And then what are the PQS enablers? Uncertainty management and expectation management become the key enablers for this to happen as a tool for that. I recently gave 2 more talks on Pharma 4.0, transforming pharmaceutical and biopharmaceutical manufacturing. Those are available to you on my YouTube, and once you get my presentation PDF, you can click on that to go through that. I will not go through that because I went in detail on a case example of metoprolol succinate extended release dosage form challenges that I see at Sandoz and Vocard and Dr. Reddy's, and how it relates to the chaos that what we saw and so forth. So there's a deeper case example of metoprolol succinate under that, and I would urge you to go and look at that. But the point I want to make here is this: assurance bridge is critical. It is the bridge between clinical to the real world and internal to external validation. Internal validation, I'm simply using that as as an aspect of our professional development. And to appreciate system, we have to really think about 4 types of systems: chaotic, complex systems, complicated, and simple systems. How can we distinguish this? It has to be based on cause and effect relationships. Cause and effect relationships are either self-evident, it's a simple system, or cause and effect relationships are multifactorial, not easy to understand without education, training, and experience, that is expertise. That's complicated system. That's the reason why good practices apply for complicated system and best practices apply to simple systems. In a complex system, cause and effect relationships are not known or known after the fact. Therefore, after research and development, we do know the cause and effect relationships of a complex systems. If we don't do the right research and development and don't map out the cause and effect relationships, emergencies occur because of emergence, which is the characteristics of a complex system. And chaotic systems are extremely sensitive to initial conditions or starting conditions and are not predictable beyond an average. And when you think about solid dose manufacturing, you have to pay attention to your raw materials, your excipients. Our certificate of analysis often does not tell us much about the processability or functionality of the excipients, and we change suppliers. We buy excipients based on purity and impurity standards, which is the compendial standards, and we don't have the handle on their physical attributes. And therefore, and then we fix our manufacturing processes to blend for 10 minutes, granulate for 20 minutes, whatever. So variability coming in, fixed processes, variability goes out. And that's where the challenges are. And many of the professionals actually do not pay attention to this. And in and beyond COVID emergency and chaos, intellectual recovery perhaps will be rapid. But I'm sure emotional recovery of the public, this worldwide, is not going to be easy. So we are in a very, very serious situation, and we are called upon to bring therapeutics and vaccines at a warp speed, and to do that without errors. And this is a very serious challenge that we face. So we have to take a development stance, is the point I'm making. So quickly, for some reason, I did not keep a clock with me, so I'm sorry if my timing is going to be off. So in 2017, I wrote an example of Amgen, how to break the 2,3 sigma barrier. In 2015, Lawrence Yu of FDA presented a presentation, and he listed 10 companies which FDA has identified as Six Sigma companies. 5 were non-pharma, 5 were pharma. Six Sigma, not the methodology. I do not talk about methodology called Six Sigma, because that applies only to simple systems, and our manufacturing process systems are complicated systems. So I don't think the Six Sigma methodology, the green belt, black belt, is actually recommended for complicated systems. So Lawrence Yu identified Amgen as Six Sigma, and the chief quality officer, Martin Van Stiesel, had published or presented their journey to Six Sigma, the 3.4 defects per million opportunity, not the methodology, the low error rate. And I sort of examined that carefully in the context of adult human development, or the constructive development theory of adult human development. Now, I don't have any relationship to Amgen. The only time I engaged with Amgen was during my FDA time, when we were organizing the Ph.D. conferences, such as the Arden House conferences, and I had visited Amgen to look at their quality by design and the rigor they put into process validation. And I had used that as an example for training the FDA inspectorate. So I knew they were starting with a solid foundation. But Martin Van Stiesel's presentation really highlights a number of challenges that they were encountering, and what we can learn from them is amazing. So their journey started in 2004, 2003, 2004, with the PAT and the 21st Century Initiative. And many of you may remember, new prescription for generic drug makers update the plan. The pharmaceutical industry has a little secret. Its systems lags behind those of potato chips and laundry soap makers. This was 3rd of September 2003. So what is preventing pharma to adopt these approaches? The key is there has not been sufficient pain creating pressure to force us to change. Strong patent protections, isolated from economic cycles, regulatory systems promoted and encouraged and inspect and test quality system, and therefore that becomes a major change prevention system. But the major emotional aspect of the system is the product is FDA approved, the process has been validated, so if I don't look, there is no problem. I think this is a major hurdle one has to overcome. And Amgen struggled a lot to overcome this, and they focused on why are investigations important. Well, they did that in part because they had a very bad FDA warning letter on inadequate inspection investigations and OS investigations and CAPA. But they woke up and they said investigations are important. We are here to serve patients. And then they instituted an approach which is a roadmap to process capability, the PPK and the CPK calculations. I'm not going to go into that. They instituted a risk-based classification system to bring awareness to the management, improve trending, improved management oversight, standardized root cause investigation, developed writing courses, involved quality science in investigations, because our investigations are not scientific. If I look at the regulatory guidance, those are not very good guidelines, how to do the investigation. You have to bring the science into it. Initiate investigator mentoring qualification certification program. So Amgen's journey went from good investigations to effective corrective and preventive actions. Remember, corrective and preventive actions is not continual improvement. Continual improvement can only begin when you are in a state of control, and then you can improve something. Corrective and preventive action brings you back to the old state. It is not continual improvement. So if you look at, if I don't look, there is no problem, to problem solving, to prevention of errors, we can take those as stages of development for individuals and corporations. Clearly, when you succeed, the power of error reduction is very lucrative and it is cost saving. But for Amgen, it almost took a decade. And so in that sense, the three stages of professional development shown here, I want to put that in the context. Professor Keegan defined adult, I'm not talking about child development, I'm talking about adult human development. So adult human development also occurs in stages, and the 4 stages are impulse control, anger management, for example, would be relevant for adults. Imperialist, many CEOs, many of the CEOs are imperialist, okay? and then a socialized mind, which is 3rd order of consciousness. 4th order is being self-authored, problem solving, and 5th order is self-transforming mind. And the change prevention system and feeling system are the most biggest hurdle to overcome in our development stage. So for us to develop, we have to identify what is holding us back, and we have to have emotional intelligence. Remember, experience by definition is to feel, and experience, number of years on a job actually do not necessarily translate to the development. Experience, your ability to develop and overcome the challenges, the change prevention system comes with your maturity to manage your own emotions. And then you have to have a knowing system how to do it. So in that context, I think what I was able to do was to bring a framework which is rigorous in science, empirical evidence on adult human development, and associate and align that with the total quality management system of Deming, to think about internal and external validation, to thinking about I to V, global to local. I'm not going to go through all of this here, but the whole idea is for us to think about maturity of professionals, maturity of a system. We have to address subjective aspects which we are not trained to do so effectively. Clearly, we want to be objective, and professional is to being objective, but we are in an experience economy. Today, experience how patients feel or how consumers feel about a product is perhaps more important to the product itself in many sectors, including pharma. I think you're seeing that trend. So assurance of quality becomes a very significant critical quality attribute. And to give others assurance, we have to be self-assured. And just to remind you, for all our professionals, if I go back to 21 CFR 211.25, at every job, in GMP setting, we need to have fourth order of consciousness. That means people working at jobs at different levels are able to match their responsibility to their complexity of the job at hand. They are able to solve problems. And to solve problems, one of the keys is to be self-authored. Being self-authored means you are able to write your own SOPs. And this is not trivial. Writing your own SOP is a big deal, because when I go to in India in my consulting role and so forth, I get big bucks to write SOPs. I said, why are you paying me to write SOPs? You need to train people to write SOPs. Having an ex-FDA GMP expert write your SOPs is a sure sign of immature system. So self-authorship at their level of responsibility, at their level of development, I think is key. So if I have somebody who is going to make coffee in my office, I would be able, that person should be able to write their own SOP how to make coffee for me. I mean, I'm not joking about that. This is perhaps it is a light-hearted way of looking at it, but we need to promote self-authorship, and today we are not doing that. So let me wrap up. I think where we are today, I think principle of first do no harm is fundamental on which we build our careers on. There are uncertainties in the current state, and we have to think about 21st century quality, which is personalized medicine, patient-centric development, real-world evidence. And the COVID-19 pandemic has derailed and put larger emphasis on real-world evidence. So think about quality of development, effectiveness of QMS, and providing satisfaction, patient satisfaction in the real world. Expectancy effects and real world evidence really matters now. And we have to bridge the gap between one quality voice and voice of patients, one quality voice between industry and FDA, and the sector and the patients. And I think this is fundamental. I am very concerned and very serious, and I think looking at the recent Science magazine, I think we have to really pay attention. Democracy is in the balance. Around the world, democracy is losing. Plutocracy and technocracy gaining ground. So it is prudent to verify critical assumptions among communities of pharmaceutical knowledge, such as NJ-FAST. Democracy remains the desired mode of governance, yes or no? My answer is absolutely yes. We have to work towards doing, making sure that we do not add more weight to eroding factors that erode democracy. We need to be promoters of democracy. I see two options of one quality voice. FDA approved, so shut up and take it, or reduce errors and give assurance to patients. So let's remember, I think nocebo effect is the negative of opposite of placebo effect. And we need to work hard to give assurance, prevent errors, prevent warning letters, prevent negative media coverage, so that we work to remove our product features out of the nocebo cycle. Clearly, physician factors, disease process, patient characteristics, healthcare settings are all important. But we can control this by providing assurance so that drug features are not part of this nocebo cycle. We are makers of our meaning, and human constructive development theory simply says how we make meaning changes as we change our development. So within us and what outside us, epistemic trust is very key. managing is execution control authority within and without. Pharmaceutical is an expert evidence-based medicine expected to be better than placebo in the real world that's outside of the sector. Quality is compounding of quantities. We focus on quantities and analysis, specifications, which is material objects and objectives, and qualia, which is individual and subjective needs and expectations. Qualia is awareness of experience, introspectively accessible, phenomenal aspects of our mental lives. Control and authority over qualia within to satisfy needed and expected quantities without, outside, I think is one of the key things that we have to think about. So as I end my journey of Schrodinger's cat, my journey from 2015 to 2020, why do cats land on their feet? The core of a scientific lifestyle is to change your mind when faced with information that disagrees with your views, avoiding intellectual inertia. Yet many of us praise leaders who stubbornly stick to their views as strong. I think this is where we are, and I think we have to empower our own professional development and the development of our colleagues and our direct reports, and that's the message I want to leave with you.
Thank you very much, Ajaz. That was a really thought-stimulating presentation. I appreciate that. I think that last quote is actually really special. That's
Thank you. Thank you. I hope I didn't go too much over my time. Sorry.
That's fine. That's wonderful. We've barely lost anybody, so you've kept the audience. Thank you.
Thank you.
And encouraging to learn that you consider NJ Fast as being one of those little keys that may help us to preserve democracy.
Yes.
So we have a valuable role. Good for
yes,
us.
it is. It is.
So the chat function or the question function is the way we'll do Q&A. So if folks have questions, please drop them in the question box. As folks compose questions, I'd like to kick us off. You alluded partway through to excipient control and the fact that an excipient C of A generally doesn't tell us much about how a material will perform in processing. Given all that you just talked us through, how's that going to change? What's going to be the impetus to evolve that situation?
Well, I think, first of all, I think, thanks for that question. My concern is the excipient issue is going to really get more complex and really become a bigger problem as we go on now because of supply chain disruptions and so forth. So that is one element which will add to our risk. So this needs more attention. Now, the whole idea of the PAT initiative was to bring into play endpoints, processing endpoints, rather than fixed time, correct? I think utilizing spectroscopic Raman infrared spectroscopy, not only for identity, but also to gather information about physical attributes that can correlate with functionality or processability, and then designing a manufacturing process which is not fixed in time, that you blend till it's homogeneous, you granulate for the right granule size, you coat for the right coating thickness, is part of the solution. It's not the entire solution, it's part of the solution. That was the whole idea of the PAT initiative. I think getting handle on functionality, databases, knowledge bases of excipients, we have been working on that for the last 15 years at NIPT with FDA, but that's a humongously large challenge. Okay, so for example, Steve Hoig at the University of Maryland has devoted his career to excipient functionality and others. So that gap will remain, unfortunately, and I think we have to be more vigilant is my way of thinking. So vigilance, for example, I think when purchasing excipients, raw material suppliers and qualifying raw material suppliers becomes a very high area of interest and attention that is needed. And I think when you look at the Amgen case example, that was one of the things that they focused on.
Thank you. That was interesting. Yeah. Let's say, feel free to post questions in the Yeah, so one question that's come in from the audience. Can you discuss prospects for continuous granulation and continuous operation of other solids processes?
I think no, just to disclose my potential conflict, I'm also a shareholder and advisory board member of Continuous Pharmaceuticals, which is the spin-off MIT Novartis spin-off. So we have a company on that. So continuous manufacturing is really a hot area of focus. Our University of Rutgers with Professor Muzio has progressed quite a bit on that, on direct compression. And I think with respect to the continuous manufacturing of API, integrated continuous manufacturing that MIT Novartis aspect is, it actually changes the form and structure of the dosage form. So it goes from co-crystallization directly to molded tablets instead of granulation as a stage. So I think hot melt extrusion technology is coming up rapidly for aspects on continuous manufacturing. So perhaps I lost track of what the gist of your question was. I think it's a very hard area of interest. This is where things are going. But granulation endpoint, if I think about traditional granulation endpoint has been a challenge to objectively measure that. And in a continuous mode, I think my only example I can think about is Tide detergent. I have not worked in this directly, but Tide detergent is continuously manufactured by Procter & Gamble, and I had sent their TA team to study that. So I lost track of your question, I think.
Yeah, it was around PAT for continuous manufacturing, but I think you addressed that. Continuous manufacturing for granulation.
Yeah,
and you did address that. Actually, to go back to the excipient question, and I should have connected those two excipient questions together. So certainly excipient complexity is certainly a contributor to product quality problems. How much of that is due to just inappropriate specifications on excipients?
Quite a bit.
As opposed to perhaps inappropriate controlling the wrong variables.
Right. No, I think in a typical development report and typical product development, I think not adequate attention is focused on lot-to-lot variability of excipients. It's actually fairly rare to see companies do extensive lot-to-lot variability work in a new NDA, and I haven't seen any in a ANDA, for example. So ANDAs just go with the cheapest certificate of analysis, not for all companies. I just don't want to blame everyone. But the general tendency is this is a blind spot. They go with certificate of analysis. It's a USP. That's it. There's no other consideration. So in that sense, this is a blind spot, and we could do much more if we paid attention earlier on to excipient variability, supplier variability, lot-to-lot variability, but that takes time and effort.
Yep, that's for sure. What role do you think the government may play in the future with respect to ensuring supply and quality of pharmaceutical products?
Just to give you a sense, I think last few months within the National Institute, we have several continuous manufacturing centers from Rutgers to Purdue to Connecticut. So we have been working on and engaging with government to think about bringing reshoring manufacturing to US. So that has been an active effort ongoing. It's still ongoing right now. And at the moment, in an emergency, in a crisis, a lot of money has been spent by to bring in that direction. but I'm afraid I think we need to step back and think more carefully about how we do that, and that's the reason we wrote a paper which is in and beyond COVID, and I think I referenced that in my abstract. I think there's a need for a very concerted industry-wide discussion and approach to doing that. At the moment, we are throwing money at the problem.
Mm-hmm. Right. So still in the general vein of excipient attributes and testing, should USP include suggested tests for excipients such as particle size, flow, in addition, I presume, to the mandated requirements for?
No, I think when it comes to physical attributes, right? So just to give you a sense, I think so. We had a lot of discussion with USP on this topic, and I think journal chapters and general methodologies, measurement systems, I think go hand in hand with the USP effort. But to associate that with NF monograph would be something not manageable, is my sense. To give you the reason I say that is, if you take dissolution test, so when it comes, see, our analytical methodology, measurement certainty or measurement uncertainty is better managed for solution chemistry, okay? So when it comes to physical attribute testing, whether it's particle size or particle shape or plume geometry and everything, we have a big challenge. In one sense, if I take a look at the blend uniformity debate that has gone on for 30 years, we don't know how to blend powders becomes one way of interpretation of that. And literally every modified released product monograph has their own dissolution specification, because dissolution is product specific or formulation specific. Most of these are formulation specific, matrix specific measurements, which are unique to that formulation or unique to that matrix. So putting them in a monograph or putting them in a public standard becomes a challenge. So yes, USP should progress the journal chapters and analytical methods needed for that, but not get into the monograph. I think this should remain a contractual agreement and the responsibility of sponsors and the suppliers. That's my view.
Thank you. So maybe I'll ask one final question to close, and not to suggest that you're done contributing, but of all that you've done in your career across industry, academia, and FDA, what are you most proud of?
I think pharmaceutical manufacturing. I'm an R&D person. My Ph.D. was clinical pharmacokinetics. When I realized pharmaceutical manufacturing was essentially a stepchild in the sector and was in dire, I left my R&D emphasis to focus on that problem of a stepchild. Nobody wanted to take that on, and since manufacturing delivers a product that actual patients use, my commitment to that over 30 years is what I feel proud about. I never gave up.
Well, thank you. So with that, I will draw this event to a close. Thank you once again, Dr. Hussain, for a really thought-provoking and fascinating presentation. Great to hear from you again, and I wish you all the very best in your continuing endeavors.
Thank you.
Thanks to those who called in. Appreciate your attendance, your questions. Please join us for the next meeting.
Thank you.
Good night and be safe.
Good night.
Bye.